Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, April 18th, 2022, and welcome back in to the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we recap all the action from the Orioles series win over the Yankees at Camden Yards this weekend. O's took 2 of 3 from the Yanks, and I've got my 3 big takeaways from the weekend series having to do with the rotation stepping up in the absence of John Means, the bullpen, besides one pitcher, continuing to dominate, and the Orioles' walks that they have continued to draw all season at the plate, finally leading to some hits with runners in scoring position late in the game on Sunday. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we'll get to our 3 big takeaways from the Orioles series win over the Yankees in just a second, taking 2 out of 3 from New York this weekend. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by betonline.net. And if you went over there and placed some money on the Orioles this weekend, well, you probably got some good odds and you probably won some change this weekend. And it's not just betting you can do over there at betonline.net. You get your scores, you get your podcasts, you get your sports news as well. You get it all at betonline.net, where the game starts. And before we get to recapping the weekend, just wanted to thank you for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. Locked On Orioles is free and available on all podcast listening platforms. And remember, we're the only daily Orioles podcast out there, bringing you content Monday through Friday here on the Locked On Orioles channel, whether it be on Apple Podcasts. We thank you all for leaving ratings and reviews. If you could continue to do that, 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, that really helps. Leave a review on Spotify as well. And then, of course, right here on the YouTube channel. If you're watching here, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, follow along, leave some comments if you would like. Really helps out the entire podcast as well. But again, just wanted to thank you for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. And for your first listen today, it's a happy Monday in Baltimore. The Orioles have won their first series of the 2022 season. They take 2 out of 3 from the New York Yankees over the weekend. It was a 2-1 win to start it on Friday with a walk-off walk by Ramon Urias in the bottom of the 11th inning. Then the O's did fall 5-2 on Saturday, but got the rubber match with a 5-0 win on Sunday, using a 5-run 8th inning against the Yankee bullpen to win that ball game and take 2 out of 3. Orioles 3-6 on the season through their first 9 games of the year. And today, I've got my 3 big takeaways from the Orioles weekend series win over the Yankees. And let's get right to it. Start with number 1, and that the starting rotation needs more of what they showed this weekend, especially because they're going to be without John Means for a long time this season. Now, we talked about this at the end of last week on Thursday and Friday's episode. I was at the game Wednesday night at the ballpark when John Means left after 4 innings against the Brewers with some forearm tightness. Well, that forearm tightness Wednesday night turned into an elbow injury on Thursday, and eventually on Friday, the Orioles placed John Means on the 10-day injured list and really had no timetable for his return. Well, things got progressively worse over the weekend as Brandon Hyde talked to the media saying he really didn't know when John Means would be back, and even did say, he doesn't know if he'd be back this season. Well, then the Orioles placed John Means on the 60-day injured list on Sunday. Now, obviously, it does free up a 40-man roster spot when you do that. They were able to add Marcos Duplan to the 40-man roster and to the active roster. He was with the Orioles in the bullpen on Sunday. But it shows you just how long he's going to be out. So we now know that at the very least, he's not coming back for 60 days. O's won't have him until at the very earliest mid-June. But it seems like it's going to be longer than that. We haven't heard anything else. Brandon Hyde did say that, he's going for further testing. Right now, it's being called a left elbow sprain, but there's more testing being done. And again, I've talked about this already. I'm not going to say definitively that John Means is getting Tommy John surgery, but I am prepared for the John Means needs Tommy John surgery report coming up here soon. As he gets the more tests, a lot of guys who get Tommy John, there's kind of a group of guys who get Tommy John who they throw a pitch, they feel something pop, their arm hangs, they walk off the mound, they immediately find out you need Tommy John. Then there's other guys who have forearm issues. Then they turn into elbow issues. And then eventually, after going through different steps, they just end up getting Tommy John. And I'm scared that John Means is on this path. And, it kind of feels like, well, if he needs it, get it now, because maybe he could be back, midway through the next season. But I'm so worried that this is going to be a point where he's trying to do different things to get back on the field, and he finally has to get something like Tommy John late this season and has to miss all of 2023 as he recovers. Now, obviously, that's worst case scenario, but that's what goes through your head when you lose your ace and the real one good, solid starting pitcher that's in this rotation right now. And so without John Means, he makes 2 starts on the year, and that's it. That might be it. He could miss the entire rest of the season. The question is, who will step up in his place? And we know eventually we'll see Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle Bradish and DL Hall come up and help this rotation. But the question is, who right now is going to help the Orioles? I mean, they've got Spencer Watkins starting a game tonight, and they haven't even named a starter for Tuesday's game 2 in Oakland. But the rotation this weekend certainly did its job in stepping up. You start with Friday. Jordan Lyles, after getting smacked around last Saturday in his Oriole debut against the Rays, he was really, really good. He was a big reason why the O's were able to win that game in 11 innings. Lyles start on Friday, 5 1/3 innings, 1 run on 6 hits. He struck out 4. He walked 2. He threw 91 pitches. And after allowing double-digit hard-hit balls against Tampa, that's a ball off the bat, 95 mile per hour of exit velocity or higher, he allowed only 2 hard-hit balls in 91 pitches in 5 1/3 innings. That is big. He also had Friday as well. All those stats, just huge things for Lyles. Had 5 whiffs on the changeup, had 4 on the slider. And this is a little weird because Lyles throws a 4-seamer and he throws a sinker. So in terms, if you just combine those two and mold those into fastballs, that was what he threw the most. But if you separate the 4-seamer from the sinker, Lyles actually threw his slider more than any other pitch, threw 34% sliders on Friday. He got 4 whiffs on that pitch. It worked pretty well against those big right-handed Yankee hitters. Stanton and Judge can tend to struggle with those sliders sometimes, and Lyles took advantage, and he used that slider a lot. He used the changeup a good amount. He was still throwing the 4-seamer and the sinker, but he mixed pitches more, and it seemed to work. And if the Orioles can get that exact start every time from Jordan Lyles, that would be a huge success. Now, you'd like him to go a little longer than 5 1/3, and he's been known to do that in his career, get through 6 or 7 innings. But even this start at 5 1/3, that's pretty good stuff against the Yankee order. Then you go to Saturday, where Tyler Wells had a huge bounce back start. Remember, lasted only an inning and 2/3, allowing 4 runs last Sunday in his first career start against Tampa. Bounces back against the Yankees. Now, we knew he wasn't going probably more than 4 innings, but he went 4 solid innings, 4 scoreless in his second career start, 3 hits, 3 strikeouts, and 2 walks. He threw 64 pitches, only 3 hard hit balls. He got 8 whiffs in those 4 innings. Listen, that's a pretty good number. And another thing, the same thing happened for Tyler Wells. He throws a 4-seamer and he throws a sinker. And if you combine those two, he threw 25 fastballs. But if you separate them, he actually threw 19 sliders, which was his most used pitch. And that pitch was working pretty well. The fastball was around 94 when he threw that. He mixed his pitches well. He got some good whiffs on the changeup, which looked good. Wells looked so much better in this second start than he did in the first. And yeah, there was some traffic on the bases. He got out of a bases loaded jam in the 3rd inning, but he looked more confident. He looked like, he was good in the first inning against Tampa, and then things unraveled in the second. It looked like he took what he did in the first inning against Tampa and threw 4 innings of that against the Yankees. Now, obviously, the question moving forward is how much deeper can he get into games? But I think they'll build up the pitch count. And yeah, he might still throw 4 innings in his next start, but they'll try to get him, over 70 pitches, maybe near 75. Again, he threw 64 on Saturday. I like the confidence. He didn't seem to be, sweating it out, having to throw 64 pitches. And I think he's on track with what the Orioles want to do with him in moving him into a starting role. And so far, I think after an early hiccup, definitely a big positive sign for Wells. And then Bruce Zimmermann finishes it off with the best start of them all on Sunday. And what a start to the season for Bruce Zimmermann. After he throws 4 scoreless innings in the home opener in the win over the Brewers on Monday, he comes back and throws 5 scoreless innings on Sunday. 5 scoreless on 4 hits. He struck out 6. He walked just 2. Threw 75 pitches in 5 innings. He was looking good. There were 6 hard hit balls, not a huge number, not a low number, but he got 12 whiffs, 12 swings and misses in those 5 innings. That 12 whiffs, That is the high mark for any Orioles pitcher so far in 2022, now 9 games in. And, I talked about this after Zimmerman's start on Monday against the Brewers, that changeup looked really good. And, the slider has always kind of been his best secondary pitch at times. And his fastball last year got smoked. I mean, he throws the fastball usually most of the time, but it's just been a bad pitch for him. Well, he literally changed things up on Sunday. 8 of his 12 whiffs came on that changeup. And here's the big thing. Bruce Zimmermann threw the changeup 41% of the time against that right-handed hitting heavy Yankees lineup. That was his most used pitch. Now, the fastball was still his second most used pitch, but he threw the changeup the most. It got 8 whiffs. That thing was darting and diving. I'm going to be honest with you. Watching Bruce Zimmermann on Sunday, it looked like it was John Means out there pitching. He's using his changeup more than his fastball. He's mixing in the slider and the curveball as well when he needs it. But basically was a fastball changeup pitcher, getting all those strikeouts, all those swings and misses on that changeup that tails down and away from all those righties in that Yankee order. He had Judge looking silly. He had Stanton looking silly. He had Torres looking silly. It was fun to watch Zimmermann work through those innings. He now has 9 scoreless innings through his first 2 starts of the year. I am very impressed by Bruce Zimmermann. And obviously the big question, as we said at the top, who can fill in this John Means role? Because there's a scenario where Means does not pitch again in 2022. Well, Bruce Zimmermann not only could fill that role, but could fill it in the exact way that Means does. I mean, he literally was throwing just like John Means, it seemed, on Sunday. And man, Zimmerman's got me excited to watch him pitch next. I mean, it's going to be next weekend in Anaheim. And I can't wait for that. So with a big loss with John Means, shout out to the Orioles rotation for having 3 big starts to help them win this series. But even though the starting pitching was really good, the number one reason that the Orioles took 2 out of 3 was the bullpen continued to dominate opposing hitters. And we'll talk about that coming up in just a second. But first, who would have thought that the Orioles would win this opening series against the Yankees? Even though the O's did win 8 of 19 against the Yanks last year, you look at the rosters and the O's should be overmatched, especially without John Means, especially with the fact that they literally couldn't get any hits with runners in scoring position coming into the series, and they barely got any in the series. So if you looked at the odds on this series, most people probably would have bet on the Yankees to win it, and they would have lost. But if you went over to betonline.net and you placed some money on the Orioles, well, you certainly would have won. And you can do that over at betonline.net. But it's not just, your casual sports wagering. And it's not just baseball as well. They've got NBA playoffs, which started this weekend. They've got the NHL. They're ramping up towards the playoffs as well. And of course, you've got your Major League Baseball. And how about some NFL draft odds as well, as that's coming up in a couple of weeks. But it's not just the wagers. You can get your scores, you can get news, you can get podcasts just like this one over at betonline.net. And you can really do it all. You can even play your favorite Vegas casino games. So head over to betonline.net, where the game starts. So the Oriole starters were good over the weekend. The Oriole bullpen was better. And I would make an argument, and the stats have put the Oriole bullpen in the top 5 so far this season through 9 games. In terms of talent on paper versus how they're pitching, the Orioles have had the most impressive bullpen in Major League Baseball so far through a week and a half of 2022. And I don't think you can have a big argument against that statement I just made. I mean, they have been fantastic. How about Friday? Let's start with Friday. Jordan Lyles leaves after 5 1/3. It's a 1-1 game. The Oriole bullpen gave up 1 base runner for the rest of the game. This game went 11 innings. Lyles went 5 1/3. The bullpen had to go 5 2/3, and they gave up nothing. The only base runner they gave up was the idiotic base running play by Anthony Rizzo in the top of the 11th. The Yankees started with the zombie runner on second with nobody out. Stanton hits a ground ball to short, and Rizzo just runs into the ground ball. It hits him, and he's out. But Stanton was awarded a single on the play. I don't understand why. It feels like it should be a fielder's choice. Stanton goes to first, the runner's out. Instead, the runner's still out, but he was given a single. That's the only base runner they got. If Rizzo just avoids that ball, it's a ground out to short. So it shouldn't have been a hit anyway against Joey Crable in the inning. So basically, they didn't even give up a base runner in 5 2/3, allowing the Orioles, who couldn't get a hit, to finally walk their way into a walk-off win, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then you go to Saturday, And yeah, Travis Lakins was bad. In his 2022 debut, he gives up 4 earned runs on 5 hits in an inning of work, but everybody else was good. And then you go to Sunday, and after Zimmerman throws 5 scoreless, the bullpen throws 4 scoreless, and they shut out the Yankees. The Oriole bullpen in the 3 games this weekend, if you do not count the Travis Lakins outing, because man, oh man, did Orioles Twitter give it to Travis Lakins on Saturday. Of course, he was the guy who came up to replace John Means on the roster initially on Friday when the Orioles initially put Means on the 10-day IL Friday before eventually transferring him to the 60-day injured list on Sunday. It was Lakins who was added to the roster. Kevin Smith, the left-handed pitching prospect, was outrighted off the 40-man. He did clear waivers, so he stays in the organization in AAA Norfolk. But it was Lakins who was back on a minor league deal and was not on the 40-man, who was added to the 40-man roster and called up from AAA. And, he struggled last year, then had the weird elbow injury, missed the second half of the season. But in his first appearance back, he was terrible. He came in with the Orioles leading 2-0 after the rain delay, the hail delay, really in the 6th inning, and blew that game. Gave up 4 earned runs, and all 5 of them basically scored against him, even though the one was earned to Mike Baumann. But let's just, let's still give Mike Baumann the 1 earned run, even though he only faced 2 batters before the hailstorm. If you take out Travis Lakins from the weekend, who kind of screwed over the Orioles bullpen ERA, here's the Oriole bullpen minus Travis Lakins, who I don't want to talk about anymore. 13 2/3 innings pitched in the 3 games over the weekend, 4 hits allowed, 1 earned run. And remember, that was just because of a Baumann 1-out walk before the hail that Lakins allowed to score. 17 strikeouts to 3 walks. That is a 0.66 ERA without Travis Lakins. That is an absurd number. And that has continued just bullpen dominance that has kept the Orioles in a lot of these games this season. Jorge López, 3 scoreless innings, including the final 2 innings on Sunday. Alexander Wells comes up and makes his season debut. And even though he was pitching with the Orioles trailing through the 8th and 9th scoreless in Saturday's loss, and then got optioned back to AAA, but we'll see him again soon. Dillon Tate, 2 appearances, 2 2/3 scoreless. His stuff was looking nasty on Sunday, really Friday and Sunday, but especially Sunday. I mean, he was throwing some unbelievable changeups, got on Pitching Ninja as well. How about Bryan Baker on Friday? Bryan Baker threw an inning and 2/3 scoreless with 3 strikeouts Friday. He was fired up. He was pitching in the extra innings for the Orioles. He pitched the 9th and the 10th. How about Bryan Baker? I mean, this bullpen is putting it together. I mean, Felix Bautista had a nasty outing on Sunday. Cionel Perez got a huge strikeout in the Friday game. I mean, Lakins was bad. And even Paul Fry, who looked a little shaky Saturday, didn't give up an earned run and got some key outs in that game to keep the Orioles around, even though they ended up losing. Everybody is contributing to this bullpen. Joey Crable had another scoreless appearance. He still hasn't given up a run this season through 5 appearances. Everybody is putting in the work, and this bullpen is working as a unit. And right now, just like it was in 2020 when the Orioles had that hot start to the shortened season, the bullpen is the strength of this roster right now. And with the offense struggling and with the starting pitching now missing its ace in John Means, they need this bullpen. And listen, it's not going to be like this all year. They don't have enough established guys. They're going to get overworked because of the loss of Means. They just don't have enough starters. They're going to pitch too many innings. Guys are going to get tired, and guys are going to give up big innings. And there's going to be some more guys like Travis Lakins coming through who pull down the bullpen ERA. But it seems like so far they found a dude in Cionel Perez. They found a dude in Bryan Baker. They have found a dude in Felix Bautista. They may have found a dude in Joey Crable. I mean, all these guys are pitching so well. And Tate, the stuff is looking good. Jorge López, the stuff continues to look good. Even the starters who are pitching out of the pen, like Wells and, Baumann, especially his first appearance, it's all looking good. It's fun to watch this bullpen work. Again, I would still like to see Cole Sulser and Tanner Scott in this bullpen. I still hold up to what I said about it not being a great trade by the Orioles, because I think those are more veteran guys who have a proven track record. But, some of the bullpen guys have proved me wrong. And, guys like Baker and Perez have stepped right into the Cole Sulser and Tanner Scott roles and pitched as good and even better through 9 games than they have. So kudos to those guys. They're pitching well. And listen, you give up, in total pitching 6 runs to the Yankees in a weekend that included 2 extra innings on Friday night, and 4 of those runs are charged to one pitcher. Everybody else just gives up 2. That's a round of applause for the Orioles staff, especially this bullpen, which just continues to dominate some pretty solid lineups so far this season. But speaking of lineups, we obviously got to talk about the Oriole offense, which despite 2 wins on the weekend, didn't exactly instill a lot of confidence. But the baby steps were taken this weekend, and they showed out in the 8th inning on Sunday. We'll talk about that in just a second. But, for the Oriole offense, it hasn't been there this year. Maybe they just need an energy boost in that offense. Maybe they just need to get their hands on some Built Bars. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the market. These things are delicious, covered in 100% real chocolate, all these great flavors like peanut butter brownie, white chocolate chunk, mint brownie, and so many others. Coconut almond they've got as well. They taste great. It's not that gross protein bar taste. It's delicious. It's like eating a candy bar. That's really what it's like. It's like you're eating a candy bar. You get a delicious treat, but you get 17 grams of protein. It's just 130 calories. It's good for you, and it tastes good. That is what makes Built Bar so great. I keep saying there's no way Built Bar can continue to make a bar this good that's good for you, and they keep proving me wrong. So head over to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, and you can get 15% off your order. Again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. So we finish up today here with the Oriole offense because we talked about how the starters stepped up and the bullpen continued to be good. But the offense left a whole lot to be desired. I mean, let's be honest with you. The Orioles scored 9 runs this weekend, and they scored 4 runs in 27 innings, really. If you chop off the 5-run 8th on Sunday, I mean, they were doing nothing. They won a 2-1 game in 11 on Friday. Saturday, they got the 2-run moonshot homer from Cedric Mullins in the 2nd inning. That was their only offense. Sunday, they were held scoreless for 7 before they broke out for the 5 spot in the 8th. It wasn't great. And the runners in scoring position struggles, they continued. Now, they did have a 3 for 9 on Sunday with the 3 hits in the 8th, but they're still now 10 for 86 with runners in scoring position on the season. That's the worst average in baseball right there, 10 for 86. And that's with the 3 hits they got in the 8th on Sunday. But what I will say about the Orioles, and this is kind of the third biggest takeaway, is that the patient approach at the plate, the swing decisions that we've heard, Matt Borg-Schulte and Ryan Fuller and Brandon Hyde talk about, all spring training and early in the season, trying to get their pitch and taking a walk if they need to. It's working out. And it's going to continue, I think, to work out. Because although the Orioles are 10 for 86 with runners in scoring position, that is a bad number. A bad number. And they were 7 for 82 before the 8th inning on Sunday. That's even worse. But here's the thing. They've had 94 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. That was going into Sunday. They are now over 100 plate appearances with runners in scoring position on the season. That is 7th best in baseball. So when you think about it like that, the Orioles aren't coming through. But what they're doing is they're a top 10 team in baseball right now in terms of getting runners on base and close to the top 5 in getting them into scoring position. And they're not bunting guys over. They're not, getting a leadoff walk and bunting them over. They're getting, the 2 guys on or loading the bases, getting the 2nd and 3rd, whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, those runners in scoring position hits are going to come because the walks have been good. 41 walks in 9 games. That is, that was 5th in baseball going into Sunday. And I believe it's jumped them up to 4th now in baseball. 41 walks in 9 games. That's really good. That's a patient approach at the plate. And they weren't adding the hits to it to get the runs, but they were getting the base runners. I mean, shout out to Robinson Chirinos. Listen, the 8th inning was fantastic. They load the bases with 2 outs. Rougned Odor finally has, his first good Orioles moment with the 2-run single against his old team to put the O's up 2-0. And then Gutierrez has the RBI double, to score 2 more. That makes it 4-0. Then Jorge Mateo comes through. He had a 3-hit day on Sunday. He makes it 5-0 with the RBI single, all with 2 outs. But you got to give the credit to Robinson Chirinos. I mean, he's been struggling mightily at the plate this year. He comes up with 1st and 2nd, 2 outs in the 8th. It's still a 0-0 game. Orioles have been abysmal with runners in scoring position. He works a 10-pitch walk in that at-bat. I mean, Chad Green or Jonathan Loaisiga, was firing pitch after pitch. Arguably the Yankees' best reliever in Loaisiga, pitch after pitch after pitch. And he works a 10-pitch walk. He's laying off good breaking balls. He's fouling stuff off. And he gets it to the next guy. And it was Chris Owings' spot. And Brandon Hyde smartly pinch hit with Rougned Odor. Not like he's been much better. So it's not like, he got Mullins or Mountcastle to the plate. But he got a better hitter to the plate in Rougned Odor. And Odor delivered with a better matchup, the lefty against the right-handed pitcher. And he got it done. And that was a huge walk. And then, of course, Friday night, the Orioles win in the 11th. They finally score in the 11th inning because they walked 3 times in the inning. They start with the zombie runner at second, and they work the 3 walks. And Ramon Urias, after Cedric Mullins strikes out against Chapman with the bases loaded 1 out, you're thinking Mullins is up. He's at least going to hit a fly ball and end this game. Mullins strikes out on 3 pitches. Here comes Urias. He falls behind 0-2 against Aroldis Chapman. Not exactly a comfortable at bat. And he takes 4 straight pitches out of the zone. And that 3-2 breaking ball, he let it hang up there and it missed above the zone for ball 4. And he draws the walk-off walk for the Orioles win on Friday. And that was a patient AB from Ramon Urias. And they continue to be patient throughout the weekend. I mean, listen, they walked a considerable amount of times all weekend. They drew 10 walks in the Friday game, including the 3 in the 11th inning. That's a big number, 10 walks to draw. That's not what we've really seen from the Orioles offense over the past couple of years. But they got the job done. Listen, in that 8th inning Sunday, Odor and Gutierrez, that was each of their first hits with runners in scoring position this year. It was the 3rd for Mateo. He's leading the team, but they got it done finally. And it's because those walks got those runners on. If you continue to put pressure on the pitchers, eventually you're going to break through. And you saw it on Sunday because it wasn't just the Odor hit. That felt like a weight lifted off the shoulders of the Oriole offense, the Odor 2-run single. But you could tell that opened up something. That opened the floodgates because then Gutierrez with the 2-run double and then Mateo with the RBI single. And all of a sudden, hopefully, this rolls right into Oakland starting tonight. And that's where we leave you here on today's episode as the Orioles are heading out west for a West Coast trip starting tonight. A 4-game series between the Orioles and the Oakland Athletics, with Game 1 starting tonight at 9:40 p.m. Eastern Time. It is the O's and the A's. 2 teams not picked to do a lot this year because the Athletics have traded off a lot of their players. They really cleaned house this offseason. But one of the guys they somehow haven't traded yet is their ace, Frankie Montas, and he is starting Game 1 tonight. And it's not the Orioles ace going. It is Spencer Watkins making his 2nd start of the season for the O's in Game 1 tonight. Now, coming up on the podcast this week, of course, we got 4 more episodes coming up later this week, but it's going to be a little different here on the pod this week because, listen, I hope you all are understanding, just with the rest of my life schedule, work schedule, and whatnot, just not going to be able to stay up and watch all 9 innings of these 10 p.m. West Coast games and then get podcasts out to you by the usual 5 a.m. when they are posted in your Apple podcast feeds or Spotify or wherever it may be, and the 8 a.m. on YouTube. I apologize, just not going to be able to happen. So what's going to happen on the pod this week is we won't be talking much about the games in Oakland, at least on the Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday episodes. Now, on Friday, we will recap the entire 4-game series between the O's and the A's. So make sure to look forward to that on Friday's episode. But with the rest of the episodes this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll be taking a look at the Orioles minor league teams because we never did our full minor league previews before the season. So it'll be more of a minor league check-in. And this week, we're going to check in with the Delmarva Shorebirds. We're going to check in with the Norfolk Tides, and we're going to check in with the Aberdeen Ironbirds. And the next week, we'll check in with the Bowie Bay Sox as well. So again, on this week's episodes, not going to be much about the Orioles games in Oakland unless something crazy does happen that I got to talk about. But in terms of that, we'll get to all the Oakland games on Friday's episode. But before that, we will be back tomorrow, the Tuesday episode. We're talking Delmarva Shorebirds, the low A affiliate of the Orioles. They got a lot of new faces you need to learn about on that team. It's a lot of recent international signings on that squad. And, some of them have really stood out so far this season in Delmarva. So Sam Jelinek is back on the pod tomorrow, the play-by-play voice of the Delmarva Shorebirds, to talk to us about who has stood out so far in Delmarva this season, who are some pitchers and some hitters to watch from definitely some prospect names you may not know, and what to expect in Delmarva in the 2022 season. So that's all coming up on tomorrow's episode of the podcast as we preview the Delmarva Shorebirds. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.